What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and today, guys, we are going to be fighting Barioth in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Now, Barioth is an interesting monster. He made his debut in Monster Hunter Tri. He was probably, I guess you'd say, like the allegory for like Nargacuga. He was the next lion and cat monsters, if you will. Because when he came in, they actually got rid of Nargacuga, and then this is kind of his replacement. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Nevertheless, Barioth is a very cool monster. He is a saber-toothed wyvern, a pseudo-wyvern. A pseudo-wyvern is a monster who has the wings and their arms as one, as opposed to having the wings separate from the body altogether. Nevertheless, still a really cool monster, really interesting. It is an ice wyvern. The thing about him is that he's all about that cold, nice, cold weather. So how do you beat him? You use fire. I think he also has a weakness with electricity. That's kind of why I'm using the Legiacris switch axe here. Mind you, the Legiacris switch axe, not the ivory, not the nether. So this is actually a high rank weapon. So this fight actually took a while. Nevertheless, I was able to do it. It just took a minute. Switch axe is not a weapon that I use often or actually ever. I think I only have 3 uses of the switch axe in this entire game. So maybe my methods weren't actually the best. I don't know. If you're a switch axe user, critique my ability. Nevertheless, so let's talk about Barioth. So he, like I said, is like the step into like the cat type monsters in the original Tri. Whereas in 3 Ultimate we do get Nargacuga and Nargacuga back. Nevertheless, let's talk about what makes him what he is. So, being a cat, he pounces, he hunts, he stalks, he jumps here, he jumps there. The things to really note from him is that he has 2 different type of ice, I almost said ice fireballs, ice ball attacks, where he has one where he'll just shoot at you, and then when it hits the ground, it turns into like an ice tornado. That's the thing that kind of happens with basically all of his ice balls. He has a jump back version. He has the one where he's just sitting on the ground, he'll do it, and he has one we could do when he's flying. They all have the same properties. Like I said, they make the ice tornado thing or whatever. It's not a crazy thing. You can usually dodge it. Blocking it does take a bit of knockback though, so if you have like guard 2, you're probably gonna be in your best means to do so, to block it, that is, without all the other hoopla. That's the actual tornado itself, but the ice ball itself, you can knock the ice ball away. It doesn't take a whole lot to actually block against that. He has pouncing attacks, multiple pouncing attacks. Likes to fly, and he'll fly over to the far right or whatever, and then he'll run at you from that way. He'll fly to the far left, run at you from that way. He'll fly around in the air. He maneuvers around you a lot more frequently than you would think that he actually would. More so than that of Nargacuga, in my earnest opinion. He has a hip check too, which is new to this game. He did not have a hip check in the previous game, so that's something to look forward to as well. Actually, his hip check is kind of crap, so again, nothing really to look forward to. If you get hit by it, it's going to do like no damage. His tail sweep is quite annoying as well. His tail sweep actually goes all the way across his body, like all the way across his body. So you could be in the very front of his body and still get hit with it. You could be at the like a little to the left of it and still get hit with it. So it's really annoying. The hitbox in that is actually really upsetting. So the fact that he moves around so much, has a bunch of weird attacks that are super annoying and everything. How do you combat this man? Simple. You break the wing spikes on both of his arms, and every time he does that whole jumping, flying thing where he jumps around you and then runs at you or whatever, he will slip. Best way I could put it, he just slips. He'll do the thing, and he does it all the time. It's like he learns from it. If he does it, he'll slip, and then like it gives you a free opening to do an attack. Mind you, he'll still attack out of it once he recovers from slipping and falling, but it's every single time he does it. So it's pivotal that when you fight him, you want to break both arms, at least one of them, because depending on which side he like jump and flies around on will be the side that he'll slip on. So if you don't break the left and he jumps left, he'll still land and be fine, but if you break the right and he jumps right, he'll slip. So break both sides. His fangs do necessarily nothing. You can break those if you want to. It is what it is. But outside of the attacks that I've mentioned, the one attack that I think was nerfed was his Superman diving attack. He used to Superman dive all the time in Tri. They nerfed to where he just doesn't do it as often anymore. The Superman dive is you would go into an area with him in it. he would come into the area flying, and he would dive down on you every single time. He still does this attack by jumping onto walls and jumping off that wall and diving down at you. And I think it's his highest hitting attack, so if you do get hit with it, it's gonna hurt a bit. But if you see him like try to, if he's enraged for sure, if he's enraged and he's like hanging around some walls, you kind of want to get away from that, because it's probably going to hit you with the Superman dive attack. Super annoying. You don't want to get hit by it. Like I said, if he flies to other areas, especially after he eats, he will probably hit you with it as well. So be wary of that. Also, lastly, I should mention, if you can manipulate, like in his starting area, you can manipulate where he is. So if you jump off the platform, he'll immediately come back down to the ground. And when he does this, he Superman dives to the ground. Also, when you come back on top of the platform, he will Superman dive from the sky as well. So be wary as to when you do the manipulation, because you want to make sure he doesn't catch you when you're like almost super vulnerable, like I was. Like when I was doing it, I was trying to sharpen, but I almost didn't make it out of there scot-free. So that's all his attacks and everything, and really all you really need to know about fighting him himself. Like I said, he's weak to fire because he's the ice guy. Use fire to smack the heck out of him and dodge a lot of his attacks. Break his shoulder guard thingies so that way he slips and falls all over the place. And that's it. He's not a very tough monster to fight realistically. He does move a lot, but that's because, I mean, he's a cat. He has the lowest HP, I believe, of any tier 3 monster in the game. So other monsters that are similar to him will actually live a lot longer than he will. So that's all I really have to say about him in that regard. Let's talk about his... So Barioth's weapons are actually cool. No pun intended, my god, but they're really cool. I like the design on them and the way they actually work. So Barioth's weapons are very akin to Nargacuga weapons, where I said the Nargacuga weapons are weapons of high affinity and sharpness, not so much attack. And that's still true with Barioth because his attack isn't actually that great, but all those weapons have about 20 or so affinity, and that's the same thing with his light bowgun. Now his light bowgun doesn't have the highest attack, 325 I believe is what it maxes out at. 20 affinity, which is pretty solid. I mean, most weapons don't even have affinity, so 20 affinity is pretty good. On top of that, it has a couple of really decent shots. I mean, Pierce level 3 is actually really good. I think it has 5 shots to Pierce level 3, so that's kind of cool. Other than that, a lot of the other shots seem to be pretty average for reasons unexplained. It has flaming shot on an ice gun, but whatever, you know, it is what it is. But I think his bowgun is actually pretty good. All things considered, you may probably want something a little more, but to be fair, there's not a whole lot of ice weapons in the game. There's this and Glacial Ignactor, and I don't know, it's a tomato kind of thing when it comes to those two, in my earnest personal opinion. But then again, I'm not necessarily a gunner. I wouldn't know what gunners would likely want to look for in a gun. I just look at the shots and compare and contrast. Say, yo, I know Pierce is pretty solid, and you know, Crag and Cluster is actually pretty good as well. Slicing is pretty solid. So whichever one has the most of those, with a solid number of attacking stats, deviation, and so on, then I just kind of pour for that. But as it stands, I think Barioth is pretty solid. Now, when it comes to its bow, I don't know anything about bows. The bows are pretty cool, I guess. It has rapid fire and spread as its actual charge shots, and it switches between rapid, spread, as far as level 1, 2, 3, and 4s go. So, I mean, it is what it is. You can kind of blah. So, I don't know. I think the bow is pretty cool, and I think the guns are fine. His weapons aren't that best, and that goes for his Blade Master weapons. They're not necessarily the best. But then again, this game was kind of really weird, so some weapons are actually just not that good. Like overall, for example, the only ice gun lance is the Jade Barioth gun lance, and it's only a rare 8. Now, mind you, it has nothing to do with Barioth here, but I'm just saying, like, there's other like weapons that just don't go all the way up to the top. And I'm not saying Barioth's weapons are like that. It's just that it kind of feels like they don't. Between Barioth and Sand Barioth, even when you max out some of his ice weapons, I mean, the ice element is pretty good, but I kind of feel like you would get better out of like some other ice weapons. Those ice weapons not necessarily being the Glacial Ignactor, but more so being the, I don't even know what they're called, but they're like relic weapons. Well, they're not relic weapons. They're like, I'll put a picture on the screen, but like those weird weapons. You know what I mean? The weird, look like they came out of like from space weapons. You know what I'm talking about? Every weapon has one. Lances is, I think, is water or something like that. But if you can get it's the Doom Eternal, which I think is ice. Anyway, it's ice weapon, that ice weapon is better than the Barioth ice weapon. It's in a weird mix, you know what I mean? It's like this weapon, these weapons could have been better. I mean, I already said that the attack wasn't gonna be very high, but the sharpness and the affinity and the element don't necessarily save it when you got other things encroaching those same things. The only thing it has over others is the fact that it has affinity. Nevertheless, I'm not gonna get to a long drawn-out explanation on its weapons. Its weapons are fine if it's all you got, because I mean, this is still early Monster Hunter. Sometimes this might actually be all you got, so you just kind of have to work with what you got. So I think the weapons are pretty good. Not a whole lot of monsters weak to ice, but the ones that are, you can still definitely down them with these. Its armor, however, isn't like very good, honestly. Like, there's some skills on it that are pretty solid, but these skills you can actually gem in very easily, like easily to gem in on other things. You get Constitution, Ice Attack, and Evasion. These are the 3 skills you get across all of its sets: low, high, and G. Just that in low, you don't get Constitution. You only get 8 points to it before you actually, well, you only get 8 points. You need 10 before you actually get it, but you get Ice Attack and Evasion. Ice Attack is, I guess, negligible, but then again, if you really are trying to squeeze out extra damage depending on the monster you're fighting, it could be great, honestly. I'm not going to sit and pretend and lie. Evasion is solid, especially if you know how to use Evasion properly. Evasion 2 is as high as it gets in this particular game, but if you use Evasion to actually evade through certain attacks by increasing your iframe and so on, if you're really good at that, then it could be very nice to actually have. Might be one of the earlier armor sets you can actually get with Evasion on it, so I mean, that's not that bad. Evasion is a good skill. I quite like it, but again, like I said, you can kind of gem it in. Same with Constitution. Constitution reduces the stamina it would take for you to do things. So for example, let's say, here's your ballpark numbers. If by rolling once you use 10% of your stamina bar, with Constitution you only use like 5% as opposed to 10. You know what I'm getting at here? Boom. And that's its skills. The G rank is actually kind of cool, actually pretty cool, because the actual design is freaking godlike. Also, you get 4 points in the handicraft, so with just a really solid charm, you can probably put full handicraft on your set, giving you sharpness +1. So the armor could be better, but I've seen worse. Now, the Raptus Barioth is not necessarily a flagship, but he's definitely a pretty decent monster, more so like a stepping stone kind of monster. You kind of use the things that he gives you to go do things for other, you know, other bigger, badder things. You use his armor sets to kind of stepstone your way up, if especially you haven't actually procured a G-rank armor set or a particular armor set with the skills you kind of need on it. They're not, again, like I said, they're not the best. They kind of get the job done. His weapons, I wish they were just a little bit better, honestly, just a little bit better, you know what I mean? But for what it's worth, they're not horrible. You could definitely get by with them, but it's really slim pickings when it comes to ice weapons. But to beat him, like I said, the way to trivialize this entire fight is by breaking both sides of his arm spikes, both right and left. By doing so, every time he tries to dodge and run around, he slips and he falls and he trips, and it leaves you with the large opening to do either A, attack, B, run away, C, evade and like heal up or whatever, you know what I mean? It's actually very useful. I strongly urge you to do this whenever you fight him, and this particular thing carries on to the later games as well. Outside of that, he does have his ice ball. The ice ball, once it hits the ground or hits you, actually I think it's just hit the ground. When it hits the ground, it emits this giant ice tornado thing, but other than that, if he hits you with it directly, it makes you go into the snowman state. It's not a very strong attack. He doesn't really have very many strong attacks. He does have the arm sweeps where he'll like throw his arms at you or whatever to kind of go at you, but it's not necessarily worth like really talking about. The only attacks that I should truly and earnestly mention is his tail sweep, because the tail sweep has an incredibly stupid hitbox, meaning it would actually hit you even if you're like to the far left of him. It'll still hit you. It'll hit you if it's directly in front of him, even though it reaches around his entire body. It doesn't necessarily lose the hitbox even if you cut the tail. So even when the tail is cut, so it's the same crap. I think that's about everything for the Barioth. There's not a whole lot to say about the guy. He's not a terribly interesting, well, not a terribly difficult monster to fight. I'm sure everyone can actually take care of him and do as you please and kind of get what you want out of the guy. But it is what it is, nevertheless. With that being said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. I do not know who we're going to be fighting next. This is the last pre-made video I have. If you would like to see me fight a very particular monster and do a video on him, let me know in the comment section. And with that being said, it's been your boy. Take care.